Breaking tonight, angry new questions about who is protecting the investment of American lives spent to help Iraq. As a terror group the president once described as junior varsity racks up a major league win in that country. Good evening and welcome to the Kelly File, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly. Tonight, in one of Iraq's largest cities, just 70 miles from Baghdad, the flag of the terror army ISIS flies over the center of town. The Iraqis struggled to hold Ramadi for months. But over the weekend, the smaller but apparently more determined Islamic State group broke through. And now we are hearing reports of civilians being murdered in the streets in what has become the terror group's trademark after capturing a city. Despite all the money and training the U.S. has spent on the Iraqi military, when the Islamic State's breakthrough came, the cameras captured Iraqi army vehicles racing out of town. Once again, they cut and ran. Now thousands of Iraqis, maybe tens of thousands, can be seen trying to escape on foot, looking for some sort of safety after leaving a city where more than 200 American soldiers gave up their lives in the Iraq War. Recall this terrible scene from April 6, 2004, and we warn you, it is disturbing. 11 years ago, a dozen U.S. Marines lost their lives fighting to rout some bad guys from a city where some very bad guys just took over. Look at those terrible pictures and look at that remembrance of the fallen. Moments ago, I spoke with Pete Hegseth, the CEO of Concerned Veterans for America. Pete, we show that video, of course, not to be sensationalist about the loss of American lives, but to remind the audience of the blood and treasure that was left on the streets of that city. And for what, now that it's back in the hands of these terrorists?
You know, to the veterans of Ramadi and Anbar province, I salute you. To the 238 men who gave their lives in that soil, we will never, ever forget you. And to the policymakers in this administration who forsake that and threw that under the bus, I say shame on you. This policy has consequences. Retreat from the battlefield before it's finished has consequences. Ramadi is strategically, not just morally significant, strategically significant. The political hub of Anbar province. The logistical supply lines between Baghdad and Syria and the Haditha Dam that could unleash water on Baghdad. This is a huge blow to the effort to defeat ISIS and a major blow to everyone who gave so much, who turned that country around. Ramadi's also significant, Megyn, because it's where the Anbar awakening started, the precursor to the Iraq surge that gave the entire country hope. Ramadi was pacified in 2008, 2009, 2010. It didn't need American troops to remain secure, but when we didn't sign a status of forces agreement and President Obama and Hillary Clinton supported a policy of retreat in Iraq, it slid in the wrong direction. And so I thank everyone who served and gave so much, but the policies of this administration unfortunately have undercut it.
We were just told on Friday by Pentagon officials that they were on the defensive. That is, the Islamic State was on the defensive, including here. 48 hours prior to this event that we just saw, a top U.S. official said Ramadi it might just be a PR stunt, the reports we were hearing about the danger there. Do you believe we have a handle on what is happening with the Islamic State in the Middle East right now?
No, there's a fundamental disconnect from the reality on the ground. Even those of us that follow it get bits and pieces of information. And because the American intelligence is limited, our presence is limited to training on bases, our pinprick airstrikes are not having the effect we want. I mean, this is not as if Ramadi was a secondary effort. This was ISIS's main effort to retake, and they've been going at it for over a year. Iraqis sent reinforcements. We sent air support in the air to try to pull back that siege. Inevitably, they were determined, and they've seized it. And for whatever reason, the White House doesn't want to admit that this terror army, as you call it, this caliphate, is continuing to expand in Iraq and Syria and around the globe, and seeks to go at the very heart of what we believe. And it is a manifestation of failed policies. The question we need to ask Hillary Clinton is, knowing what you know now, Hillary Clinton, would you have supported precipitous withdrawal from Iraq in this administration? No, all of the things that she supported, this administration supported, have led to this. Same question in Libya. When we didn't have a plan, that went south. So it's what happens when America doesn't lead, doesn't have moral clarity, and isn't willing to be strong. And we're seeing it, unfortunately, all laid out before us.
Pete, why did the Iraqi security forces that we have trained and invested so much effort in once again cut and run?
It's a very important question, a really frustrating one for me, because we know they're getting training from Americans and others as well. Well, you know ISIS is motivated because they're fighting for some sort of caliphate. You know the Iranian-backed militias they believe they're fighting for their existence in Iran. The Iraqi security forces right now, they look to Baghdad and wonder whether or not that political system really supports them. And it's because the Prime Minister Maliki and now the new Prime Minister have hedged toward Iran, and the Sunnis in Anbar province wonder, are they really backing us? And if it's so bad in Anbar province that the Sunni tribes are calling for Shia-backed militias to come help them. I mean, that's how much the Iraqi army wonders where the support is really coming from, and it leads to them saying, we're done in the face of this enemy, we're going to put our weapons down. And that's not okay, but it's a serious problem, and it's because we're not right there with them.
And now all eyes are on Baghdad as a city that is 60 miles to 70 miles outside of it falls to ISIS. And this was an important one, and an important one to get back. Pete, thank you.
Thank you, Megan.
Joining me now with more, Fox News contributor and former chief speechwriter to President George W. Bush, Mark Thiessen, who just penned a Washington Post column on how Iraq is starting to play in the race for the White House. Mark, thank you for being here. The Washington Post out with an editorial tonight, an editorial now from the paper, calling this a stunning fall in Ramadi, saying it exposes President Obama's weak strategy, saying the U.S. lacks a strategy, and going on. This is the Washington Post to say there was hope that the president's half measures might be enough, but now even modest optimism is questionable. What does it tell you?
It tells you that we're talking about the wrong things. We spent the last week talking about what happened in Iraq 12 years ago, and while we were doing that, in the here and now, the terrorists were on the march in Iraq. They were marching through Anbar province. They took Ramadi over the weekend. They're on the outskirts of Baghdad, 80 miles away, commuting distance. Our strategy in Iraq is failing. Despite months of American bombing, the terrorists are on the offensive. This is an absolute unmitigated failure, and the American people, what the American people want to hear from their presidential candidates and from the President of the United States is, what are you going to do about it today? What are you going to do about Iraq today?
Well, I mean, as the person who asked Jeb Bush that question, I submit to you both are relevant, because people also want to know what the philosophy is in terms of going to war. At what point is it worth it? So they're both relevant questions. But I want to ask you about what the Post outlined tonight in its editorial. They talk about how captives are now being slaughtered right now, that ISIS has seized U.S. military equipment, including 30 U.S. government vehicles that we gave them the day before. The day before, as we're saying, oh, this is a PR stunt, we're giving 30 vehicles that now are in the hands of ISIS. And the question is whether our government, the people running this war, have any idea what they're doing.
The commander-in-chief doesn't have any idea what he's doing. But I'll tell you something. The American people know what needs to be done. The American people want to send ground forces to Iraq right now to fight ISIS. There was a Quinnipiac poll in March that said 63% of Americans want to send ground forces to Iraq, including 73% of Republicans and 53% of Democrats. A majority of Democrats think we need ground forces. So there's absolute consensus among the American people, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, that we need ground forces. There's consensus in our military commanders that we need ground forces. The only one who doesn't seem to realize we can't win this without ground forces is the commander-in-chief.
Even the Washington Post tonight addressing that, saying President Obama refuses to send special forces and military assistance that could meet the threat there. Speaking of, he thinks everything is a commitment to a long-term war. So now we've lost Mosul, we've lost Ramadi, and we've opened up the pipeline from Syria to Baghdad. And at what point, Mark, is this president going to say, I can't run out the clock. I am going to have to deal with this before the next president comes in?
He has to deal with it, but he's not going to. He doesn't want to. And look, 12 years ago, we had flawed intelligence in Iraq. President Obama had accurate intelligence in Iraq. For a year, the intelligence community was telling him that ISIS was on the march, that they were going to invade Iraq, they were going to take Mosul, they were going to go and try and take Baghdad, and he dismissed them as JV terrorists. So, you know, the President of the United States is not listening to his intelligence community, he's not listening to his to the military commanders, and he's not listening to the American people.
They will be heard, because people are being slaughtered at this moment, including women and children, civilians, and on it goes. Mark, it's good to see you.
Thanks, Megan.
Also breaking tonight, new fallout after the president orders new restrictions on police departments across this country, while the DA down in Baltimore is now trying to shut up the police who have been charged in the recent death of a suspect. Meanwhile, she was out there holding a 20-minute press conference, but the lawyers for the cops can't speak. Judge Andrew Napolitano is next on that. Plus, a tale of two professors, each making controversial remarks on race and each getting a very different reaction from the folks they work for. James Rosen has that.